Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we are going to take a deeper look at the nodes changing signs. So this is a meditative rant video. It is not so much in my normal stuff where I would do the weekly transits, the daily stuff, the hourly stuff. This is going to be more focused on the bigger picture and a longer cycle that we are going into. And we specifically go into it this week. Now, January 11th, the North Node is going to go into Pisces, and the South Node is going to go into Virgo. And we are starting to transition into a new cycle. But really, parts of this cycle has already started. And it started a few months ago. And I'll be blending some of the stuff about what has just occurred and what is leading us into this next vibration, and also be covering some of the bleed over in regards to what we're looking at. But whenever it comes to the nodes, a lot of people tend to ask questions as to like what they represent for people. And I have a very layman's way to explain this, taking the concepts of like Vedic astrology and putting it into a more humanized modern day terminology for a lot of people. So that way it's a little bit easier to understand. Depending on the type of astrology that we're talking about, whether it's Hellenistic astrology, Vedic astrology, modern astrology, most generally the North Node is associated with gains. Depending on which of those versions we're talking about, sometimes those gains feel like destiny. Other times those gains feel like greed and selfishness. There's no humble energy regarding the North Node. But I always like to take it back to the story of the dragon. And I want to be clear as I describe this first part. This is the dusty version of this. This is not the official version. I'm putting some stuff in layman's terms to make it easier for everyone to comprehend. Once upon a time, there was a dragon. Compare that dragon to like Thanos. I want to have control of everything. I will have the entire galaxy. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I'm a greedy baby. The problem with this dragon is every time that he would go to consume a world, the belly would get full. And he didn't like that. So, feeling frustrated, the dragon goes to a magi. I want to eat everything in the room and never get fat, don't we all? I want to control, I desire, I feel entitled to, I feel destined to have, to control, to be in charge of, to have dominion over these things. And I want to be able to have it all. Magi, hearing the plight of the dragon, it's a terrible idea. It's a horrible idea. But if I give you what you want, it's going to hurt so many people. That snap, comparing it to Thanos again, that snap. So much would be lost, so much would be damaged, so much would be hurt. But if I tell you no, you're going to eat me, coming from the point of the Magi. So the Magi had to be smart. I will give you what you want, but there will be a stipulation. There will be rules. Whatever it is, I agree. Never agree to anything blindly, ever, ever, ever. But the dragon did. He agreed to something blindly, not understanding the stipulation involved. When the Magi separated the dragon into two parts, the North Node became the head of the dragon. I will have, I will consume, I will desire. This is my goal. This is what I feel destined to have. This is what I will have dominion over. Again, give me, give me, give me. I'm a greedy baby. And the South Node became the body of the dragon. What has been removed, disgraced, discarded, outgrown, left behind, released, purged. You're going to hear me say purge a couple times, by the way. Now, the Magi being smart, the stipulation was to anchor the nodes to the moon, because the moon is the closest thing to us. We can always see it, air quotations, minus a new moon or two. or 12. Now, whenever the nodes move, they move in a pattern opposite of the planets, and it's said to be a visual trick. The North Node feels like he will have dominion and control over those planets, over a certain vibration. And the closer the North Node becomes to a planet, it becomes all consuming. And I've seen that manifest in people's lives in a couple of different ways. I will have, I will control, I will have dominion over. And it's like this fueling vibration. But the other side of that can be overconsumption. And we've seen parts of this back at the start of the last cycle. Right before the nodes changed signs in July of 2022, all of May. So the nodes changed signs in July, but in May, all of May, the North Node was conjunct Jupiter. And I started saying it right back then. We're feeling consumed. We are consuming too much. We feel like everything's going to go a certain way, but what we find ourselves doing is like we're spending all of our savings, we're spending all of our money, we're taking too much on. And after too much was consumed, I don't want to say burnt up because really Jupiter was in Taurus at the time. So I don't want to say burnt up, but it was enough to destabilize people. When the North Node goes into Pisces, he will immediately start major conjunctions to multiple planets. And whenever it comes to the control, the wishes, the gains, the destiny aspect of what the North Node in Pisces is going to represent, there's a lot of distortion coming with the gains of the North Node in Pisces. But it's not always about gains. In addition to that, the South Node, the body of the dragon, is moving into Virgo. And one of the things became very, very clear to me over this last cycle was that whenever a planet goes retrograde while hosting one of the nodes, North Node or South Node, whatever the host, whatever node that one is hosting also amplifies through its retrograde energy. Now I'm going to talk backwards for a second compared to what we've already gone through over the last 2 years and bring it to the forefront. At the start of the last cycle, July of 2022, we immediately went into a Venus retrograde. The South Node went into Libra, and we went into a Venus retrograde. And a side note, if you start to hear little like old man snore like things in the background, my dog has decided that she wanted to be a part of this session, so she is underneath the desk area. So you might hear background noise. She just started snorting. That's why I said that. When the South Node went into Libra and Venus turned retrograde, I said it back then, hyperized purge, the things that come to light, the things that get revealed. They're going to be disgraceful for many, disheveling. There will be major impacts to people's health, specifically with the things that Venus rules. And it is going to be very, very hard. And it is going to set the stage for an entire 18-month cycle. That was July of 2022 to now. At the end of the cycle, while the North Node was in Aries, Mars has been retrograde. And the first part, I don't want to say half because it hasn't been half, but the first third of the Mars retrograde hosting the North Node, yes, there has been disruption, but there has also been gains. There has been an uptick. There has been a level up. There has been actions to achieve. And that again is Mars hosting the North Node. We had gains to come through. But now the nodes are changing signs. The North Node will now be hosted by 2 planets, Jupiter and Neptune. The South Node is going to be hosted by Mercury. And it's going to get real interesting. Want to focus on the South Node for just a second. South Node, again, is the body of the dragon, the body without a head. So there is no ego, but there is framework. There is a structure. There is something existing, the body. With the South Node going into Mercury's sign and comparing it to the hyperized energy of what we just saw in the previous pattern, this tells me that every time the host of the South Node goes retrograde, we are going to have huge shakeups of purge, specifically purges of information, purges of things, again, that are going to impact the body, an upheaval of rules, of knowledge being shaken up, revised, rewritten over and over and over again. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and over the next 18 months, there will be 5 Mercury retrogrades. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 Mercury retrogrades that will have an element of purge to each of them, release to each of them, adjustments and change of facts, of figures, of receipts, of what we know to be real or true, revisions. That's going to happen on a multitude of levels. For some of us, that's going to be in the mundane sense. We're going to shift something in our routine because it's going to be better for us. And that's going to be easy stuff. Take it a step further, there's going to be more rules enacted at work. One of the things that was very big over the last 6 months is that a lot of people were getting told, you can't work from home anymore. There was a very big decline in remote jobs because so many people were in that desire of having control. You have to come back to work. I want to say, what did Bloomberg say? Somewhere between 30 and 50%, like decline in remote jobs. So the policies have already started to get rewritten. But when people come back to work, they're not going to be aware of all the policy changes that happened while they were remote. I don't want to say gone. They weren't gone while they were remote. So policy changes, rule changes, layout changes, but I mean like chain of command layouts. There is going to be, in some ways, logical shifts, in other ways, illogical shifts whenever it comes to the South Node being in Virgo. Very 1984-ish, if we start talking about the government. Very 1984-ish. And that is a George Orwell comment for those that do not know. Rules will get rewritten. Laws will get rewritten. Now, we've already had some elements of that. I know. I'm saying bigger changes, shifts in that level of understanding. And they're going to have a little bit of a militant act behind them. And that takes me into the bleed over that I started referencing right at the beginning. The bleed over. Oh, whenever it comes to eclipses, the axis usually goes full moon, new moon, new moon, full moon, new moon. That's not what we're getting. That's not. On the Pisces side, we will have 3 full moon eclipses. The first one that has already occurred, the second one that will happen later this year, and the third and final one that will happen in 2026. On the Virgo side, we do have full moon, new moon, full moon. But in total, we have 5 full moons in this eclipse axis in this particular cycle. And full moons are generally known to be completions, coming to a high point. For some people, that can be a level up, and that will be great. For other people, that is going to be a whole different level of leaving things behind. And if you're having major shifts in regards to rules and information, of course, we're going to leave some stuff behind. If every time you go into work, you feel like the boss is changing the rules, oh, yeah, we're going to get to a point that exoduses are going to happen and we're going to leave some shit behind. And one of the things that I talked about before, this isn't necessarily about the eclipse axis right now, but it is tying into this bleed over, is that there are major shifts in regards to power in industries. And a lot of that's been very, very relevant through that Mars retrograde that we are in at the start of this cycle. When it comes to the first eclipse season that we are just a few months away from, it's January 7th at the time that I'm recording this. This cycle will start on January 11th. And whenever we get into March, that's eclipse season. So it ain't that far away. There is a bleed over from the Aries vibration that connects to the Pisces vibration. There are things that are already underway in regards to shifts of power that are starting to really line themselves up over the course of the next few months. Now, whenever it comes to a lot of the acts in regards to Virgo, Virgo is a place of being of service. How we care for ourselves, how we care for other people. There is a work element and very labor intensive element to the job space whenever it comes to the Virgo side. And one of the things I've noticed in the past, whenever we've had major Virgo transits, is that we can have petitions. Yes, that was the first word that came to my head. But boycotts, the lines, the picket lines. That's the concept I was really thinking of, was picket lines. Regarding labor, regarding work, regarding fair treatment. People have a desire for fair treatment. But whenever it comes to corporations, they're more focused on a profit margin. So there's going to be the review and the elements to create a solution that benefits the people that are paying for the solution. Please note how I said that. The ones that have wealth. Now, the North Node, again, is the head of the dragon. I'm still doing the elements of the bleed over, but I just want to explain again, the North Node, the head of the dragon. And it is going from the sign ruled by the god of war, Aries is ruled by Mars, to a sign that is ruled by hope, prosperity, wealth, and abundance. I'm going off of the primary aspects of what Jupiter represents. Now, if you put the Neptune element in there too, there's a very synthetic quality to Neptune. It's very artificial. Neptune has this way of coming into the vibration of just like clouding the senses, clouding the judgment, pulling things away, and making certain things dissipate to create something raw and new. As a collective, the bigger part of 2025 and 2026 is going into a vibration of something that is raw and new. There's a lot of new in the industries. There's a lot of new in the vibration. There is a lot of growth and change in regards to technology. And as much as I want to attest, a lot of that has to do with Uranus. When it comes to the growth, the immeasurable growth, the things that capture our imagination, that have the ability to expand and grow, Neptune. I see it more with Neptune. Pisces is ruled by both Jupiter and Neptune. The old ways of doing things are falling away, especially over the course of these next 2 years. A lot of where we're about to go at the start of this cycle has already started. It has already been underway. And in many ways, it is going to be a reaction to certain changes of opinions, changes in plans, changes in management, changes in regards to the direction of the new industries that are starting to come into power and come into play. When it comes to this upcoming eclipse season, we have our first eclipse in Virgo. That is going to happen on March 14th. We have our second eclipse in Aries, and that will be the closeout of the previous cycle. Because the new cycle, when it comes to the gains of Pisces, actually showed itself last year on September 17th. We had an Alta sign eclipse in the sign of Pisces. Now, in the mundane sense, one of the things that I talked about for everybody is this is an eclipse in a sign that we're not focused on yet. It is showing us where we need to adjust, where we need to make changes. To have what we desire, this is where we must do the work. This is where we must put our focus. This is how we heal. This is how we make changes. And there was a very logical element behind that, given the fact that during that eclipse, Jupiter, one of the two rulers of the eclipse, again from September 17th, was in Gemini. It was in Gemini, in Mercury's sign. There was a very logical element to the shift in our mindset. We are at the start of an age of the awakened intellectual. I've covered that before on a previous Meditative Rant video. For the intellectual to grow, old habits, old ideas, old ways of doing things have to fall away. We have to become more efficient and more logical in how we move forward. And that logic now I'm referring to, we need more logical tools to make things more effective. And when I say things like there's going to be a shift in industries, I'm saying all industries. There will be new industries that start to come through based off of this cycle. New technology, new growth, new tools, new ideas that will have an explosive, I don't mean this in a negative sense right now, but an explosive impact in our reality. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we also have to pay attention to the condition of the hosts of the nodes. So we're going to focus now on the first two, and that is the North Node being hosted by Jupiter and Neptune. And over the course of this 1.5 year long cycle, Jupiter will start in Gemini. That's where he's at right now. We will be wrapping up the current retrograde that Jupiter is in. And what's interesting is as soon as the nodes change signs, Jupiter is starting to station to end a retrograde. We are turning some things around. And some of the things that are turning around can go all the way back to last summer. Some, not all. Some. We're picking up on what we were dealing with before. Having a new idea, having a new concept, having new partners, having new agreements, having new tools to pick back up and start again. But that start this time around will have more gains because now Jupiter will be hosting the North Node. Now, the other side of that is Neptune. Neptune is direct at the start of this. So we already have one idea, one inspiration, one belief, going off of the concept of Neptune right now, of how we can make something go forward. And at the start of the North Node going into Pisces, it's also starting its conjunction to Neptune. So I want to show this chart for just a second, and I want to put all of this into perspective in regards to like clean looking. So going off of the screen right here, this is January 11th, 2025. I've got it at 6:30 p.m. because this is like right after the nodes change signs. You can see the North Node here in Pisces at 29 degrees. And again, the rulers are Jupiter and Neptune, not the hosts. They are hosting the North Node. We have very hopeful, spiritual Neptune, potentially fraudulent, potential misinformation and misguidedness. I will be very clear about that part too. You guys know how I feel about Neptune. Sometimes it's very spiritual and woo-woo and helpful. Other times it is lies and fraud and deception. We are becoming very blinded by the potential of something at the start. And in some ways, whatever we start to do over these next few months, especially in March, everything between January and February is laying the groundwork for that final round of the obstacle course. Now, that's me continuing and comparing some things that I've already been saying for a while. This is where either some people are in the potato sack race right now, the timeline I'm recording this, the start of this cycle. Some people are in a potato sack race again, trying to pick up on everything that they can and make the best of a certain situation to reach a goal. Other people are suddenly finding themselves attached. So some people, this next phase is like a three-legged race. They are attached to someone they did not anticipate. But everything's in temporary energy at the start. But the goal is real. The ending is real. The race is temporary, will not be in a race forever. But that desire to achieve this thing that we're very, very focused on is almost consuming for many, many people. And the closer Neptune gets to the North Node, the more we will become very consumed with the potential, feeling like certain things are destined to be achieved in a certain way. But if we become too consumed by something without logic, South Node in Mercury sign, then we are going to make some very, for lack of a better way to say it, egotistical decisions to get something, to achieve something, to have something. Now, for some, you're right. And you need to be blinded by the energy. You need to be just goal-oriented and goal-focused. For other people, this is going to be very, very harmful these next few months. And where you find yourself landing after the end of the first eclipse season. The way I look at eclipse season is whatever lunation starts it is actually the one that finishes it. So the first eclipse is going to be in Virgo. It's that full moon eclipse. It's going to happen on March 14th. It is going to end on April 12th, 13th, depending on your time zone, during the full moon in Libra, in my opinion. In the middle of that, though, we have an Aries eclipse, and that's going to happen on March 29th. And a lot of that is amping us into that new horizon, that new vibration, this new direction, this new set of challenges, this new goal-oriented place, this new technology, this new industry. There's something new coming through. And have you been leaning into this energy and focusing on the healing, the growth, the gains in a positive, logical sense, then I'm not so worried about you. But for others, there's going to be some very conflated ideas as to where we're going to land. And that's all going to come through, yes, through the 18-month cycle, but a lot of it is like where we land into the new next is going to be how we go into the second half of 2025. Almost said 2026, sorry, 2025. Oh, there's a lot of new coming, new industries, new technology, new changes. And I've had so many people saying, I can't find my purpose. I struggle to find my job. I struggle to find something that's giving me hope, that's giving me fulfillment, that I just want to be able to do every day. I struggle being able to find this. And I've told many of you, especially based off of certain elements of your chart, told many of you, wherever you're going to go next, some part of that doesn't exist yet. And that's why you're not able to find what's going to give you pleasure, that's giving you fulfillment. It's because you're trying to settle for something that's going to be temporary. And the thing is, if you look at the idea of like, I want something I can settle into, you don't settle into temporary. So you have to be more focused on the fact that this is temporary and being okay. Okay with the idea that you go into temporary vibrations, you go into temporary energy. We don't launch straight into our forever job. Some people do, but then they learn hard lessons, lessons that they had no idea were even going to be out there. But when you take the gradual steps, the entry level positions, the entry level ideas, the entry level job, then we find opportunity to grow into where we're going to have the most achievement. Grow. We step into something. We gradually step into it. And whenever it comes to that September 17th Pisces eclipse, that energy awakened exactly that. There is a goal I wish to have, something that I wish to achieve, something that I want to let go of for some. That's more kind of an Aries rising thing because it was 12th house stuff. But we had something emotionally brought to the surface, letting us know, I want this, but I know I'm not ready for it. And whenever it comes to the three versions of this eclipse axis, everything between now and April-May timeframe is full on, full steam ahead, laying the groundwork for us to get ready for what we wish to achieve, what we wish to have, where we're going to have the most gains. And for us to achieve those gains, there will also be a shift in our mindset, a shift in the rules, a shift in the plans, a shift in who and what we know to be real. Now, why do I say that? Whenever it comes to that first eclipse season, it is also combined with a Venus and Mercury retrograde. Now, right now, I'm not going to get too focused on Venus's retrograde per se. I'm more focused on Mercury and the fact that the entire Mercury retrograde is Mercury following Venus. It's true. In February, Venus is going to go into Aries, stationed roughly around 10 degrees. Right as she starts to go backwards, she'll make a conjunction to Mercury. Mercury will barely pass her. He will station retrograde. And the two of them will do this all the way back into Pisces, all the way past the North Node, past Saturn, turn direct. And Mercury will come back forward, and then Venus will slowly start to tail behind. When it comes to that timeline in March, knowing that Mercury, now hosting the South Node, following Venus, for a lot of people, what's going to come through somewhere between March and April, I don't want to just specifically say the full on the retrograde. I think there will be some stuff ahead of time that makes us aware of what we have to follow, air quotations on follow. But it feels like exactly that. There's going to be parts of the timeline where every time we work on something, we see the result of something, we're checking the numbers, we're double checking the facts, we're rewriting something, we're redoing something, revising something. Every time we take a step forward, we also have to take a step to the side and uncover a little bit more. Document, document, document. Now, for some people during this timeline, it feels like training. And that would be a good way to look at Mercury following Venus for a few weeks. You go into a new job, you don't say a thing. You're supposed to be learning. You're supposed to be getting new information. You're following behind. You are a shadow. And for some people, that will be a great time for education and learning and training. But for other people, it won't be training per se. It will be the uncovering of something that keeps coming to light, that keeps coming into focus. Something that, again, speaks to that next level of healing. For other people, that timeline is going to be seeing and monitoring the results. As soon as something happens every single day, we're looking at the numbers, we're doing the math, we're taking the results, we're combining it with the previous results, we're coming to a collective vibration. For other people, it'll be a expectation. Something will have a huge turn. A lot of focus will suddenly go into this one area, and it's like going to be like every single day damage report. Tell me what happened, what will happen today, what was going on, give me the update. And it's like I need a play-by-play of the situation every single day. You got to tell me what they said. You got to tell me what was spoken about, what was agreed to, what was the results. For some people, that will be okay. For other people, it's not going to be fun at all. And whenever it comes to the bleed over part, we still have an Aries eclipse. And it is the closeout eclipse. It is the final new moon eclipse in that vibration of achievement, competition, growth, change. And it is immediately followed, that new moon eclipse in Aries. It's going to happen on March 29th, the bleed over eclipse that I'm calling it. It is immediately followed, March 29th eclipse, March 30th, Neptune. The host, one of the hosts of the North Node, is going to go into Aries, the first dip into Aries. Now, some of what is going to happen in the first eclipse axis, that first eclipse cycle, is going to be a fast track in the vibration because, again, so much of it is letting us know this is what I had to desire. This is what we were triggered before, letting us know I desire this. I want to have this. I will achieve this. But for me to achieve it, I have to take all of these steps to prepare, all of these steps to heal. I got to do all of this work, make all of this space. And that's what we've been doing for months. Clearing some things out, separating some things, making space, going in different directions. Now, whenever it comes to these next few months, going into the first part of the eclipse axis, it is going to be putting things into perspective as to why separations were necessary. For some of us, that is because that separation is alleviating somebody from the karma and the damage that will come through in the next few months. For other people, it was preparing them for the achievement of what will come through in the next few months. And there will be waves of both, as we continue forward. So I want people to be prepared for that. Between now and basically May, June, we're transitioning into something new. And a lot of that speaks through the first eclipse axis and everything that's going to be going through Aries and Pisces, the bleed over timeline that is the first eclipse season. By the time we get through that, we will be landing somewhere new, being in something new, looking at new things, working with new people, working in new places, working with new tools, landing somewhere new. Some of you know exactly what you're working on. And again, you are goal focused and you're meant to have gains. Other people, you are riding by the seat of your pants. You have no idea what's going on. And whenever it gets messy, you're going to be like, oh my God, all this shit has hit the fan. I don't know what happened, because you did not listen. Or you just don't listen to anybody at all. And, you know, there's a lot of people really flying by the seat of their pants. Like, astrology is not real. Okay, sure. Talk to you in March. When the energy is the most intense, that's whatever suddenly the non-believers need answers. Let me tell you. Oh, it's going to get intense. After we land in the new place, though, and we start to feel more solid in our footing, in our directions, in our path, there will be additional changes and adjustments that are going to come. And that next one that will come will be later in this year. And that's going to specifically come through late summer, specifically September, when we go into the next eclipse energy. Now, whenever it comes to the start of that, it is actually going to start with a full moon in Pisces. And to me, that is the one that shows us the most whenever we have an eclipse in the same sign that the North Node is in. That means this is our focus. This is where we're either achieving, leveling up, pushing forward, reaching a high point with that second full moon in Pisces. But it's going to be the first eclipse for this season of eclipses. But there's something hinky that's going to be on the other side whenever it comes to that new moon in Virgo. And the fact that there will be two eclipses. I can't call them eclipses. I can't call an eclipse. 2 new moons in Virgo. The first one that will be at 0 degrees of Virgo, and it will just be just far enough, just far enough away to not be an eclipse. But there will be a new moon in Virgo. The second new moon in Virgo will be the actual eclipse, which tells me that a lot of the vibration between one new moon and the next new moon is changing in order, putting things into place with the idea that the second new moon, which is the actual eclipse, will launch things forward, things that are actually meant to be more in balance, more fair, and more justified, and a little bit more of putting some solid footing together there. Now, I like the second eclipse cycle. I have hope for the second eclipse cycle. Whenever it comes to the third and final One, we're going into the bleed over energy that's going to impact the next vibration. And the reason I say that is because, again, on the Pisces side, we will have 3 full moon eclipses. September 17th of 2024, September 7th of 2025, and August 27th of 2026. Exactly 1 month after the nodes change signs again. And that's whenever the nodes are going to go into Aquarius and Leo. So there will be another bleed over season whenever we get to 2026. That's going to be a part of that spring and summer vibration. And that will be a whole different ballgame. This first one that we're going to go into, it has the most dynamics to it. It is the one pushing certain things into place, sliding certain things into place, disrupting vibration. There will be disruption. There will be disruptions in regards to like sports. Whenever Venus goes retrograde in Aries, there will be disruptions in home building. And I actually did another person, a realtor's podcast recently, and that episode is going to come out here in the next few weeks. And when it does, I'll actually like post a link for you guys to be able to go listen to. I specifically talk about like the home building industry and what's going to be coming up here in the next few months for 2025. But there will be disruptions in home building, construction in general, not just home building. I should be clear about that. Construction in general, that's going to have a shifting effect that changes people's plans and changes people's mindsets. Because where we previously had trust, we're not going to trust, believe, support the same way that we used to. Now, I want to be clear whenever it comes to the other side. And I'm going to show you 2 different things real quick. I'm going to show you this screen again, going into the South Node, going into Virgo. We got to add Mercury. The way we start the South Node in Virgo, Mercury is direct and will remain direct until March 15th. So the first 2 months, air quotations on 2 months here, it's a couple days off, but the first 2 months of this vibration has a very serious, structured tone, a responsible tone, a responsible shift that's necessary. But over the course of this entire vibration, we will have multiple Mercury retrogrades. So the next screen that I'm going to show is not actually the chart, and I'm going to read this out for the people that are doing audio only. And I will probably post screenshots of this on my Facebook page and the website, so that way people can always reference back to it. So one of the things I'll put on the website is actually going to be a blog area, and I will actually put this up there for that as well. So the next thing I'm going to show you is my little handy dandy chart. And this is my chart. This is the dusty thing. This is not something that you're going to find online. This is literally something that I typed out. One, it has all the lunations for new moons and full moons from 2024, 2025, and 2026. But I'm more focused on this Mercury retrograde area down here, and the fact that each of these Mercury retrograde timelines, let's do this in blue. It's not the brightest blue, though. These are the 5 Mercury retrogrades that are going to directly impact where we're going to have upheaval, changes of information, changes of rules, changes in labor. Virgo has this aspect towards labor. And I'm talking now about, again, going back to the work element. Pickets, like people not feeling like they're being taken care of in a good way. We're going to have very big shifts in rules and guidelines, but also shifts in labor based off of how people behave during Mercury retrogrades. So there are 3 in March of 2025. I'm going to read this out for the people that are listening to audio only. The first Mercury retrograde is March 15th to April 7th. The second Mercury retrograde is going to be July 18th to August 11th. That one's going to be primarily between Leo and Cancer. The third and final one for 2025 is November 8th to November 29th. That's all three of those are the 2025 Mercury retrogrades. The two in 2026 that are going to directly impact how that South Node in Virgo behaves, February 26th to March 20th of 2026. And the second and final one for 2026, the fifth one altogether, is June 29th of 2026 to July 23rd of 2026. So for those that are watching the video version of this, you can snap a screenshot on your phone or on the computer or whatever you're doing. I know you can't necessarily screenshot it off of your TV. Some people watch this on their TVs, but each of those Mercury retrogrades are going to have a huge impact in regards to the release, the removal, the purge, the dismissal, the letting go of the things that no longer serve us, the things that we no longer need. In some ways, that's going to be good. In mundane, daily sense, that's going to be good. That's going to be okay. What's going to do is it's going to create certain levels of disconnect between you and certain people. So I got to be honest, like Virgo for me is my 11th house of friends and networking, clients and colleagues. There will be certain people that I know, and it's not necessarily that I've already picked out the person. Let's be clear about that. I just recognize the energy that I will have frustrations with clients during this timeline. I will have frustrations with actual friends, people that I choose to spend my time and space with. I will have disconnects from certain people based off of how the whole multitude of transits happens while the South Node is in Virgo. Now I'm comparing it to myself for just a second, because again, that's the 11th house. Friends, network, clients, colleagues, community, certain things in my friend groups, air quotations, and my client groups is going to change. But that's because I have gains on the other side. The North Node being in Pisces, there's supposed to be gains in love, supposed to be. Please note how I said that. But there's also going to be those gains in regards to more of the work. I keep growing the business. I've launched the website. I'm doing more things interactively with you guys. My way of connecting with people is meant to change because I'm putting more focus on another area. More people are going to be able to meet me in person over the next year because I'm going to start doing those conventions. So there's going to be a shift in this area. It doesn't always have to be negative. Sometimes we outgrow the old way of doing things, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. We're going to have gains on the other side. We are going to have appreciation on the other side. Using my own self for an example there. Some people are going to have this in their 4th and their 10th house, and they're going to put more focus on their home life and family versus their career and their public image. Their goals will shift. Some people will have to focus more on themselves as an individual. Others are going to have to focus on their health, but they will have gains on that other side to balance that negative side. Now, that's putting all those things into the perspective of why the release, why the purge is necessary. So many people, they hear like, there's going to be more loss. I've had enough loss. The loss, air quotations, the loss, the removal, the outgrowing, that vibration does not have to always be so negative. If you move, if you choose to move, if you get a promotion and that promotion requires you to relocate, your way of connecting to your friend groups will not be the same. Your neighbors will not be the same. And you are making a cognitive, logical decision to remove, to disconnect, to pack your shit up, Hey, move across state, move across the country, go to the other direction, because there's gains, whether it's a financial gain, whether it's a um, relationship gain. To have the gains, you have to make the space. You can't have everything. And that's the big thing that people need to remember whenever it comes to these cycles. You will lose some things to make space for the new people, for that new direction, for the new connections, for the new purpose. And for so many people, the gains will have purpose in where we're going next. For some of them, it's going to be like a dream come true, especially whenever Neptune North Node conjunctions get a little bit more intense, just being consumed by, I have manifested this. I'm going to have all of these things that I have desired. I'm going to reach all of these dreams. Some of us will become very blinded by the potential. And if we become blinded by the potential, given the other transits involved, that is a test. That is a test. Because what will immediately follow is the other outer planet in Pisces hitting that conjunction to the North Node. And that is good old daddy Saturn. Saturn with his rules and his regulation and his need to control and establish boundaries, letting us know this is the edge. I'm giving you 2 inches. I know you're going to stretch it a mile because Saturn knows that we're going to do that. But after so much time, I'm going to reel your ass back in. And there will be certain amounts of control that immediately start to follow all of the manifesting and all of those desires and all of those things that we're enacting. We will have to establish new rules and new responsibility. That doesn't sound very far-fetched. It's actually something I've been talking about for a while. Since the last eclipse season ended and we have the bleed over of one eclipse axis to the other, i.e., our first eclipse in Virgo, but our final eclipse in Aries, this bleed over timeline that we've been shifting towards, there has been a very continuous thing that I have been saying whenever it comes to people that are in charge, in control. Certain people that have previously been in charge are not meant to be there anymore. In 2024, we had more CEO changes than ever before in recorded history, especially with publicly traded companies. Again, I'm recording this on January 7th. One of the things that I heard this morning is that Trudeau up in Canada. So for my Canadians, I'm giving you, I paid attention to your stuff too, guys. Trudeau is resigning. That's not common for a world leader to just resign, but he is. Others are being voted out, petitioned out, pushed out. Anyone that previously was being believed to abuse their power in some way, pushed out. Some have even gone into hiding. You're a CEO of a health insurance company right now. You don't want your public information out there. I actually said some of that stuff was going to happen whenever I talked about the Mars retrograde video anyways. And now it's like coming more and more full circle. But what we haven't talked about is what's going to happen with the new rulers. And when I'm saying rulers, I'm saying like world leaders, rulers, the new rulers, the new bosses, the new people in charge, the new leaders, the new influencers, those that are going to rise to the occasion to take over where other people left off. Now, some know exactly what they're doing. They know they're stepping into this new boss role. Some have already stepped in. And what they did was they stepped in quietly. They watched how everything functioned first before they started to enact their changes. There will be an enacting of changes, of new rules, of new laws, of new control. And some people become very, very consumed by having control. And that's going to be more through whenever we get to those conjunctions to Saturn, especially with that North node hitting the conjunction to Saturn. Because that again is the head of the dragon. I will have, I will consume, I will desire, I will have what I desire. Gimme, gimme, gimme. But there will also be a focus on relevancy, on age, on our elders. Because the way that energy will impact them won't necessarily go well. Now I want to kind of spin this over to some of that medical astrology, because you guys know I don't ignore it. Oh, Jupiter rules the liver, has rulership of the sciatic nerve. So I always attone it to the nervous system, your actual nerves. So the idea of pinched nerves and stuff like that. Your thighs. Pisces is associated with the feet and the lymph nodes and the immune system. People that are struggling with something in their immunity are going to have a very rough spring. I don't just mean this in the sense of allergies. I mean this on all levels. Now, with the South Node going into Mercury's sign, Mercury is your intestinal health. The way that you digest food and the way it goes through your entire system, that's very mercurial. And what will also come through in some of the changes whenever it comes to the South Node being the body of the dragon, body, things that are on your body that have duality. You have 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, 2 arms, 2 legs, butt cheeks, duality, 2 ears, 2 eyes. They can be impacted positively and negatively. A positive impact would be like, I'm going to go get LASIK and I'm going to make my eyes 20/20 or as close as they could possibly be. That would be a positive impact, a change to the duality. But for other people, there's going to be a negative impact. Things that impact breathing, kidneys, intestinal health. And again, parts of the next year and a half are going to be very, very hard for people that are having intestinal issues. And it is going to force them to make changes in the way that they care for themselves. Because if we don't make the changes, the results can be detrimental. The body of the dragon is going into Virgo. Intestinal health is going to be very, very important for a lot of people over the next year and a half. And there has been enough markers up until this point that has made us aware we need to focus on that. And I also attribute that to Jupiter going into Gemini. He's been there for quite a while now. We needed to learn Jupiter in Gemini, so that mercurial aspect being more tested to that level of brain and knowledge. We needed to learn and get told more. We needed to experience some things to let us know where we need to make the changes. There has been an influx, especially in the last few years, but I've really seen it in the last 6 months, and more people like, I'm going to make my own bread. Just going off of bread for a second. I don't eat gluten. So finding a good bread for me can be hard sometimes. But the thing is, like, it came to me in meditation that I needed to get off gluten. None of the allergy tests actually said anything that I was having an issue with gluten. Whenever that started to come through, again, it came through in meditation. I made the changes immediately. Wasn't even a question. I knew going into that meditation that I wanted to know what I needed to change to get unblocked. Your intestinal health is so freaking important. If you are struggling in your meditation, if you are struggling with your emotions, if you are struggling to be clear, your intestinal health is so damn important. I cannot stress it enough. And whenever I do stress it to you as an individual, most people, it's like in one ear and out the other. I understand what you're saying, but I don't want to make those changes because it's too hard. Remember, you said that. For those of you that have not listened, remember when you have said that. I don't want to listen to you because that seems too hard. Because whenever the other stuff comes up, yeah, you already know where I'm going with that. Oh, now Jupiter and that rulership of liver, the liver is arguably more important to your body than just about any other organ. It is the filtration system, it is the heart of the stomach. And whenever the liver is not functioning correctly, you do not function correctly. Your blood sugars are off, everything gets very, very up and down. Those up and downs can also have impacts again to your emotional and mental well being. A lot of the focus for people about their stomach health, their intestinal health over the course of this next 18-month cycle is going to be huge. And you are going to be forced in one way, shape, or form to take care of yourself differently because of the impact of that. Now, just because, let's say, Pisces or Virgo does not rule your sixth house of health, that does not matter. And I have to say that a lot of times when I talk to people individually about medical astrology, sometimes just representing and focusing on what that planet rules on the body is all we need to pay attention to. Because that alone is the marker. It doesn't have to be in your sixth house of health. It doesn't have to be in a certain area whenever it comes to medical astrology. Just the impact of that planet, whether it's in your natal chart or in transit, can be huge. When it comes to people's health this next year and a half, the energy is going to be huge. New ways of caring for ourselves, going into new industries, going into new horizons, going into the new. There's a lot of new coming. And if you have felt like things were stagnant, not going your way for a real long time, that's again because your vibration has hit like a bit of a traffic delay, waiting for the energy to catch up with you. And that's where we get into stagnant energy. We get stuck. Between January and April, we're laying groundwork. January and February is laying groundwork. March and April is enacting actions and reactions. There will be shifts in plans. If you have one idea how something is going to go in February, I promise you by the time we get to April, that idea will not be the same. The players won't be the same. The situations won't be the same. Who you were leaning into, who you were trusting, how you thought it was going to go, not the same. Because that next vibration is so different. If you know you're going into something different, you're building something different, then you are in alignment with the energy. If you have been sitting on your laurels and just not making changes and wallowing in self-pity, you might not like what happens next. Because that vibration will force you into something that you weren't planning on, that you weren't equating for, that you weren't thinking was going to be there. But the shift is necessary. And whenever the dust settles going into April and May, after the first part of this, we will be far more connected with something new compared to what we're leaving behind. The eclipse axis is going into a vibration of transitional energy. It's going into the mutable signs. But the planetary energy, the planets, are going to go into the cardinal signs. We start this cycle off with Jupiter and Gemini, but we are going to go into Jupiter and Cancer. Neptune is going to transition between Pisces and Aries over this next year and a half. Saturn will be transitioning from Pisces to Aries over this next year and a half. Cardinal signs are instigators. The eclipse axis of the last year and a half has been letting us know we've got changes coming in this area and you need to get prepared. Did you do the work? Or did you cry about it? Some of us did both. Some of us had to cry it out a little bit. And some of us also leaned into the idea that there was going to be new there. But even that new will have tests. And for us to really step into the new, there's going to be some tests. And that's a reason why I say a lot of this energy has been an obstacle course to get us ready for that new. This first eclipse vibration that we're going to go into with this Virgo, Virgo Pisces axis. This first vibration is testing, troubleshooting, shifting into the new. Some of us will have some final rounds of previous versions of purge, because again, it is a bleed over eclipse vibration. Some of us will be ready for the new and helping people transition over, because it's not our bleed over, it's other people's bleed over. Others are going to have to be drug kicking and screaming. They're going to cry and be angry the whole time. It is what it is. Some people just don't like change. And I usually make fun of you guys. I'm not making fun right now, because even some of the changes that I know are coming, I know not all of us are ready for. We can't even imagine, we can't fathom what we're going into. But we are going into very big vibration over these next 2 years. And for some people, it will be exactly what they manifested. For other people, it'll be tense and frustrating and almost militant. I say that because we are also going to have Saturn going to Aries. I don't want to get too focused on Saturn and Aries. I don't even really want to fully focus on Neptune and Aries quite yet. I want to do those two completely separate, because there's historical references for certain generations of people that I want to focus on later. So I don't want to get too heavy on those two. I want to stay focused on this eclipse axis and the fact that we can have gains, hopeful, abundant, wealthy gains, North Node going into Pisces, healing spiritual gains, North Node going into Pisces. And as much as I can see those gains, I can also see some of the negative aspects of that too. I feel like there's going to be a whole different level of fraud and cons that start to come out once Neptune goes into Aries. That's not even a joke. And I know the rules are going to get rewritten with the South Node going into Virgo. Labor laws will get revised and rewritten. The way that certain people do things in their job and in their workplace are going to change. For some people, that's just going to be a mass change in regards to half the company is going to have a turnover. Okay. In like a 6-8 month span, not overnight. Well, on occasion, it might be an overnight thing. Mass walkouts. But for others, where we go in regards to those logistics and those changes, the release, the purge, the outgrowing, the let go, that level of disconnect is going to be required so those gains can manifest. And I do feel like there is a lot of gains. If you compare the fact that of this entire timeline, yes, we will have 5 Mercury retrogrades. Didn't sugarcoat that, showed you guys that from the jump street, gave you the dates and everything. But what I'm also looking at the fact that Jupiter and Neptune, we start this vibration with Jupiter in a retrograde, and then he will be direct for most of 2025 until November. Neptune will have one full retrograde, and we will end this cycle with Neptune in retrograde. But by then, we will already be in the new, and whatever he's revising in his retrograde won't be something that is removed. It will be about what is being troubleshooted and expanded upon of that newness. And I'm talking now 2026. The old ways are the more disrupted ones. The gains, the potential, the expansion, and the growth that can come through, they speak far louder in volume, especially through 2025, than what we're leaving behind, than what we're losing. So I do feel like there's a positive effect. But there's also this thing called growing pains. That's going to be a big theme throughout the year. Growing pains. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very interesting cycle. And I have a lot of hope for it. Maybe that's because Saturn is my time lord and he's been in Pisces forever now. And I'm kind of leaning into that Saturn vibration more so than I have been anything else. But I have a lot of hope for what's going to come through in the new industries, in the new ways of doing things, in the new rules, in the new laws. I have hope in the potential. I have hope that the new people going into positions of authority, the new influencers, the new leaders are going to come from someplace far more authentic and fair-minded than the selfish vibration that we are leaving behind. And I attribute a lot of that to Pluto and Aquarius, which I hadn't really had to talk about this entire time. But I do attribute it to that. Okay. Again, this is a meditative rant video. This is not like my normal stuff. It's more focused on just like letting people know the vibration and the energy that I'm anticipating. Yes, I gave some dates, but it wasn't like a play-by-play of going in this date and this date and this hour and this moon cycle and da 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 da. It's more focused on the vibration tied to the entire eclipse axis as we start to shift into the North Node going into Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. All right. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.